Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of AgogeTV. I'm your host Phil Leonard. Joining me shortly is my co-host Josh Summersgill, and our awesome guest today is Logan Gelbrich. Logan has done absolutely everything from being a serial entrepreneur to writing books, to owning a clothing brand and multiple gyms. He gives talks on leadership, entrepreneurial potential, and he has multiple courses available online as well. It was super fun to talk to Logan, full of insightful information, and I hope you guys enjoy it as much as we did. Obviously, as always, please check out our sponsor for today's podcast, xendurance.eu, and use the code AgogeTV20 to get 20% off at checkout. Enjoy, guys.
It's very casual as well, by the way. So
Yeah, nice and chilled.
Yeah.
I have my tie on.
Right, guys, here we go. Another episode of AgogeTV. Welcome back. Excited today to have Logan Gelbrich joining us. Logan, I'm going to really quickly throw it over to you because basically done a little bit of research on you, but so far I feel like super impressed. And I would like to know how you define what you do, because you seem to do a little bit of everything.
Oh man, I think part of what I do is I try not to define any of it and just keep my head down. So it's just as confusing for me as it is you probably. Yeah, I think if we want to talk about like some of the things that I do, I own several gyms here in California.
Yeah.
We're kind of expanding the brand of those gyms is called Deuce, and it's basically a movement school where general people come in and learn a number of different disciplines. GPP is our main offering, but we have many specialty courses that we're sort of known for. Breath and exposure, strongman. I've taught the strongman course for CrossFit for many years. It's like a bit of a movement bias for me. I'm also a writer. I wrote a book called Going Right, which is a philosophy book on decision making that came out early last year. And part of my real interest in entrepreneurship, which just so happens to look like gym-based businesses, I'm really interested in and spend most of my working time teaching adaptive leadership and organizational culture with some online education and a seminar called the Hold a Standard Summit. And so, yeah, my work, I guess, has evolved into something that feels more general. I do a lot of consulting to small businesses outside of the fitness industry, and I think that's just speaking to my specific interest in principles and how development works. So if that's not confusing enough, I don't know. I made a goal as a kid to never make a resume, so I set us all up for failure on that question, because I don't.
You don't need a resume. You don't need one.
You do not need one. You're all good. I also see a clothing brand as well.
Yeah, I'm involved with a company called Strike Movement.
Yeah.
We crush it on shoes and apparel that sort of transcend the gym space, highly technical gear, but an aesthetic, I think, that really provides a canvas for people to express exactly who they are with movement across disciplines. And it's kind of like the shoe that you could wear to a job interview, clean and jerk 150 kilos and go out for a 5K.
Nice. I like it. Awesome. So
I don't know what that looks like.
I know, right? I was thinking about that. I was like, I need to Google that in a second. But
I've got like this noble lifter / Asics kind of like hybrid in my head. I'm gonna have to have a look at that.
Yeah, check out the Chill Pill. It's my favorite shoe. Maybe I'll find a way after we get off here. I'll get you all some info. I'll get you some shoes.
Cool. Awesome. So the first thing I want to ask you about, obviously, because we're gym owners as well, is I want to ask you about your gym. It's, like you say, it's currently expanding. I know you're in California, so are you currently closed down again, or are you still allowed to be open?
Yeah, so up to the minute reporting here. So as of, let's see, it is now Saturday. I think as of last Monday, there was what feels like a regression in the opening of the state where
Yeah.
indoor retail businesses like restaurants, stores, gyms, etc., were asked to close down again, uh, except when they could make modifications for what they're calling curbside takeaway or
Right.
outdoor services. So, of the three kind of current locations, two of them are closed and are currently operating in the park. And the original location in Venice Beach is a pretty unique space that is mostly outside. So we're running a highly modified, highly protocoled, open operation there. Thankfully.
It's good, good. I like
What's
it.
it like to be able to train outside all the time?
I know, right?
So like out of the 365 days a year, we probably have like 3 days it doesn't rain because we're blessed to be in England.
Yeah.
But like,
Yeah.
what's that like training outside all the time?
I mean, in classic, spoiled brat fashion, maybe I don't remember what it's like not to anymore. It is. I'm joking. Like it is a topic of conversation all the time. How blessed we are. Sunburns and fitness related soreness kind of go hand in hand, and it's just a really cool thing. People come and visit all the time, and they say, well, what do you do when it rains? And we kind of don't really know what they're referring to. So, except we did make that joke, the bad joke that I just made a few too many times, and then the universe punished us with like a very rainy 2018. But we make do.
Yeah, I like it. And so one thing I did want to get onto as well is obviously you offer dues programming, don't you? That is predominantly at home programming as well, I believe. And I saw a cool post that you've basically followed that the whole time that lockdown's been going on. How have you found that personally? Because obviously we're fortunate enough that most of the time we've had access to a gym because like we can go to one, and a lot of the time we chose not to, just to lead from the front with the community. Again, we tried to do our best to stay out of the gym. I think I was going in once a week, and Josh predominantly trained at home during lockdown. So
Yeah.
How did you find that experience?
Yeah, I'm a bona fide psychopath, I think. And so when this thing happened, I personally and then the team collectively went into this just murderous tear to solve for this new kind of environment that we were in. And I sort of do these things often if I reflect back on my life where I'll sort of just decide that things are going to be a certain way. And I had to, in my mind, ensure that we were really delivering on what it is that we say we are. And what we're saying is that if you're a motivated individual, that all you need to do is enroll in this school. And if you do what we say, you will achieve unknowable fitness capacity, right? And that's our job. And so when worldwide fitness becomes illegal, it sort of, in my mind, it moved the goalpost, so to speak, to another location. It was a new constraints.
Yeah.
Okay. If the gym was now illegal, I couldn't reconcile any of our students saying, well, hey, what can we do? Hands are tied. We'll see you when it's over.
Yeah.
And we just, we know training too well to accept that, right? And so you sort of, with the variables that you have, deliver a solution. And we did that in two different ways. The most notable way is this program, this training experience is probably the best way to say it, that will live indefinitely, called Delta Bravo. And essentially what we've done is, it's been a goal for a long time, but with the nudge and the context of COVID-19, we've made the need for a gym completely redundant. And there's a section of service and product-based business where oftentimes convenience means a lack of quality or utility, right? Like you think about all the fitness infomercials and gimmicks that are sold. Like much of the real value is like, for $14.99, 3 easy payments, I can have this thing delivered to my door and like I'm good. Except
do
for
the squats for me.
yeah. And us three know that part of that problem is that the thing that you're buying doesn't actually give you a chance to achieve legitimate strength and conditioning, right?
No.
And so there's this compromise. And we wanted to create something that was without that compromise. And so Delta Bravo is a very potent, specific, elegant way to drive real strength, not like pretend kind of jazzercise strength, and real conditioning anywhere in the world. And what we do is we drop ship 2 perfectly prescribed heavy dumbbells, and you follow a program that progresses strength and conditioning in a mathematical way. And it sort of just like guarantees that you will drive adaptation. And it's remarkable. And I think, just longest way ever to answer your question, when this all happened, I couldn't risk undermining that truth. Meaning like, if I didn't really believe it, then there's no chance that we were going to convince hundreds of people that they should do it too.
Yeah.
So we went all in. I still haven't touched a barbell yet. I'll probably try to like make a video and see what my numbers look like first day back or whatever. But I've been training Delta Bravo since its inception, and it's remarkable.
Awesome. And if you hit a new 1 rep max, then you know it's working.
That's it.
Exactly
or 10
right.
rep max,
Yeah,
no. But I love it. And obviously your gym evolved out of GPP, and I love the fact that something that resonated with me that you said was you called it school as well. And I think that's brilliant. Like one of the things, so obviously the Agoge is the school for Spartan warriors. That's where AgogeTV came from, and that's where our gym's branding come from. So I thought that was a really cool concept that you didn't call it a gym, you called it a school.
Yeah, there's a lot of, unfortunately, horrible connotations with gyms, and maybe some of that is our fault. Most of it's just the years and years of experience and connotation that's been built coming up to this moment in time. But I think if we're honest with ourselves, maybe I'll speak for myself. We sit down and meet with folks who are interested in the gym and have a meeting with them that sort of introduces what Deuce is, and we get to know them. Classic kind of sign up procedure.
Yeah.
And I will say that completely unsolicited, meaning we're not asking them, almost 80 to 90% of those people at some point in the conversation divulge that they don't like gyms.
Yeah.
Like, what are we doing? What are we doing as an industry to make it to where the thing that we do is so distasteful and has this connotation almost universally, right?
Yeah.
And so for me, I'm obviously biased and totally projecting when I use this language and metaphor around school. But, I was a fairly high level athlete, collegiate and professional athlete. I feel like I'm a generally motivated person. I value fitness. I can't possibly wrap my head around showing up to a gym for the next 50 years of my life and just figuring out what to do, and that being somewhat sustainable. I don't think I could do that. And so I believe that the context of skill acquisition, learning something, getting better at something, is the container that every person would really benefit from to do something indefinitely, and it makes fitness for me something other than a mindless effort of addition and subtraction of calories.
Yeah.
I was speaking to one of my close friends today, and he goes to the gym, but like just like your normal sort of global gym. Do you know what I mean? Joey's doing a little bit just so he looks a little bit better. And he was saying that obviously coming out of lockdown now, he said, like, I just don't know if I can be asked. Do you know what I mean? Because his reason for going to the gym is like just, does the same thing every week, does a little bit more, a little bit less, whatever. But there's no, like he just said then, there's no skill acquisition. Do you know what I mean? He's not learning gymnastics or weightlifting or whatever. I mean, he doesn't want to, which is fair enough. But that's sort of like, if that's your reason to go to the gym, it's not going to be sustainable, is it? I suppose, as much of, I'm going to go and learn how to do such and such.
And your friend is a great example, and I think we could just run the mental experiment right now. If we are strength and conditioning folks, there's a certain amount of information in all three of our heads right now that sort of wants to tell your friend, like, hey, like, squat heavy, run these intervals. Like, there are very basic ways where we can do this thing for you, whatever the outcome is. However, I think if I'm humble enough and we're all humble enough, we could entertain the mental experiment that if your friend, let's just say, almost randomly found some sort of connection and commitment to something like bouldering.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, there's no 5x5 happening there. There's no program or whatever, but he fell in love with bouldering. And for the next 30 years, went down the rabbit hole of that. This sort of, in the military, they talk about collateral damage. That's like the accidental negative consequence where you accidentally kill people. It's like the accidental upside of going on that journey is he's interested in and curious about what he's eating, his recovery. He's now needing to be stronger to solve for this other route and this thing that he wants to do. His lifestyle is changing. And the impact, I think, is like unrecognizably better than if we force this dude to, snatch the barbell that he doesn't care about, And so, like, can we create these environments that would facilitate indefinite learning? And that is, I think, one of the ways that our industry can bring context to something that will never be popular at face value, which is over and over and over again choosing adversity, right? Like, that's what training is. Like, I got an idea, I'm gonna go feel a little bit like shit today, right? And so that's a crazy concept, but people will do that for the right reasons, right? People will do that with the right commitments, right? And so I think it's our job to create something like that, rather than be these coaches that hope everybody will be obsessed with the barbell like we are, and then just be pissed at them for not being obsessed with it, right? I mean, like, what kind of logic is that?
Yeah, I love that. I think that's like a concept that everybody could learn from. And just, again, like, obviously we've come from a CrossFit background, and that was what got me interested in CrossFit, because there was so many things to learn. It wasn't because I wanted to, like, I didn't go in going, I want to snatch X amount of weight. I walked in and was like, oh my God, I can learn. Today I'm learning how to do toes to bar, and tomorrow I'm going to learn how to do front squats. I don't know, you know what I mean? Just whatever that might be. And I think if you can maybe, I don't know, if you maybe, as a concept for something that got me thinking, was if you can sell that to people as opposed to selling them, oh, look at the shiny fitness thing that you probably really hard to achieve and can't see yourself doing right now. Do you know what I mean?
Or pukey, Yeah. It's like, I get it. It's hard,
Yeah, I love it. So I want to ask you as well about you're big into leadership. You run a leadership course. If somebody was to come to you and say, okay, tell me the first 5 things off the top of your head that make a good leader, where would you begin?
It's a perfect question to ask, and would cause a lot of problems, because in order to answer the question, we would first need to agree on what leadership is, right? And I think the way I often teach it, at this point, I've probably shared this podcast, and folks who have heard me on other podcasts are about to hear something for the 99th time. But leadership is one of those words that has a positive connotation. You know, it's kind of like yoga or kettlebell. No one's ever walked into your gym and been like, kettlebells, like, I'll do anything, but those kettlebells over there, like, keep them away from me. No one's ever said that, right?
Yeah.
They don't feel that way about the barbell. You know, there's some fear there or whatever. But there are certain things that just have like positive connotation. Yeah. And leadership is one of them. Like, if I said, hey, like, leadership, you want more of it or less of it? They'll be like, more, for sure. It's more of that, please. And everyone agrees with that. But if we start asking people, well, what's leadership? Then they start losing eye contact and they're sort of mumbling and they're giving some sort of roundabout definition. It's a hard thing to define. And so for us, we have to have a working definition of what this thing is. And so for us, leadership, being in leadership, is this role of being responsible or being accountable to the results. And what we know about results, unfortunately, is that they're never fully inside of our control. I still haven't met the person who can control the future, right? There's always some margin of error or uncertainty. Yeah. And this is the reason why leadership is rare, you know, because let's just say your gym broke a record for like revenue and new members and everything was peachy. Yeah. If you sent out an email and said, hey, like, I'm just looking for someone that just wants to take responsibility for this. Like, we're going to do a whole photo shoot and it'll be a newspaper article. Anyone would be like, yeah, sweet. Like, I'm the guy, you know, head coach right here, did it. Okay. But if things were going poorly or there was a negative result or some sort of adversity, it's much harder to find people that will take responsibility for that. And those people are ultimately the leaders, right? Now, it's helpful to have a definition just so everybody's on the same page. But of course, I'm biased. It's helpful to have my definition for a couple of reasons. One, I think it's a good definition. But two, more importantly, is that if we agree that leadership is what I just said, everyone can be in leadership. Yeah. Right? It's not about your tenure or your experience level or how much you get paid. Everyone can say, like, I'm highly curious about what my responsibility is here. Good and especially bad, right? And so when you talk about that, then now we can really talk about what leadership is, okay? And so anyone who is smart enough or willing enough to be in leadership and realizes that that's their role, the next obvious question is, well, what do I do about that? If I am a leader and my job is to be responsible for the results, and this team or this company or this group needs positive results, a great leader then would figure out how to do that. And what we know is that's a very black and white conversation. It's not easy, but it's black and white. Yeah. And here's what it is. Mastery over the things that are inside of your control. Yeah. Okay. And so leaders are generally less experts about the competition. They rarely spend time complaining about things that are outside of their control. They don't whine or point fingers, right? These people are too busy mastering the little elements that are inside of their control. Why? Because those are the only things that we can affect the outcome with, right? And so that's home base for great leadership, in my opinion.
Awesome. I like it. So, and it's, like I say, it's an excellent definition and wrapped up in some things that we talk about. I know Josh is a big fan of extreme ownership, and like it's something that we talk about quite often. That if something's gone wrong inside our walls, then it's our fault, and it's up to us to make a change and make it better.
It doesn't mean it's easy to do that either.
Oh no,
because
God,
sometimes you're like, oh, but okay, it's our fault. Do you know what I mean?
And Jocko's work is it's a great reminder of an observation that I have that I think we all can have if we take the time to do it, which is like there's a lot of great work being done in the sort of most edgy, most evolutionary look at human behavior, adult development, and leadership. And it's very academic. It's a lot of the work that's referenced in the Hold the Standard Summit that I teach. Jocko didn't do any of that schooling, but he's saying the same thing as the people who are at the leading edge of understanding leadership from a psychological perspective. And like, well, how is that? Why is that? And I think that's because we need to remember that how we understand the world, the principles that we reference in science or, you know, in any real discipline, is an observation and a learning of real skin in the game behavior.
Yeah.
Right. And Jocko just so happened to learn these lessons, not by reading a book, but by being in an environment where anything other than the best practices result in your friends getting killed. Right. The intensity is turned up. Now, I'm not here to argue that being a platoon leader in the SEAL teams is anything like owning a gym. But there are parallels because it feels like there are consequences as an entrepreneur if you fail. Yeah. They generally look more like financial and less life or death, but nonetheless, it is turned up a little bit. And so it's these types of environments that help us focus, right? They draw the field of play, right? Like, what are the rules of the game? How do I know I'm winning? How do I know I'm losing? And go, right? Now, thank goodness that, you know, you two and I, in that way, have a place for us to learn at the fringe level. Okay.
Yeah.
What I worry about is that people, if we're not careful, we can live our whole lives and avoid all rigorous environments to learn the most basic critical lessons in life. Yeah. Right. And I'm not saying everybody should sign up for the military or put their life in danger to like learn a lesson, but there are lots and lots and lots of ways to be vulnerable to high performance. And what that process looks like is having a standard in our language, or having a vision of what perfection looks like, make an attempt at it, fail, and then notice and get curious about the difference between what it is you were trying to do, the standard, optimal, and what it is that you did, which is reality. And that is the big P word that we don't even, you know, pay attention to the meaning of anymore, process. That is what makes all this universal. That's what your friend, if he's, you know, got into bouldering for the next 30 years, would learn. That's what we're all learning, trying to survive this gym business thing. Yeah. That's what Jocko learned, trying to get his teammates home safe. And just what an opportunity that we all have to engage in that kind of behavior, you know?
Yeah. I feel like, and again, I feel like the older I get, the more I talk about the process, and the more important it becomes. Like, I think that is like a perfect analogy of it, that it's not just sitting back and going, oh yeah, well, I take ownership or whatever, but it's also like, okay, what can I control? What can I do that's going to make me get to X, Y, and Z, whatever that might be, whatever your goal is. And I always like the saying that like success leaves clues. And a friend that we talked to recently, Emma, she talked about the exact same thing, how elite level athletes do exactly what you say. And you could class it as leadership. They surround themselves with a group of people that are going to help them to achieve their goals and then get better and better at that. Just to use another example. And I think that's, again, just a couple of podcasts back, but definitely success leaves clues. And again, I think you hit the nail on the head with it's the process. Just out of curiosity, because I like the way that you've defined things so far, how do you define your process? How do you define finding a process for somebody?
Yeah, so I sort of have taken my experience in sport and then recognized it in the literature and sort of reaffirmed what is the model for excellence that we use in the gym business. And that's where the the motto "Hold the Standard" comes from. I think to misunderstand that is to say like, oh, that's like a cool thing to put on a shirt, which means like we're the best or something. And that's not what we're saying at all, actually. And what we're saying is really the way I would answer your question, which is this model of how we do this. And it's reaffirmed in the work done by Anders Ericsson, who is sort of the godfather of something called deliberate practice, who observes experts, subject matter experts, and masters about how expertise is developed. And it's the same process that I did on accident as a 10-year-old trying to be the best baseball player in the world. And everyone does this, which is we have an image in our mind. Anders Ericsson would call it a mental representation. We would call it the standard, an image of our mind of what it is that we're trying to do. And then we make our best attempt at that thing. And what we notice are the deviations between that thing we were trying to do and what it is that we actually did. As a coach, you both do the same thing. It's based on your vision and the image in your mind as to what a good back squat would look like that you are comparing against when you see your students back squat. And then it's by noticing the deviations between the two images that you're able to do what coaches do, which is we cue them to try to what? Get closer to the standard. And this is really what we're all doing all the time. When I was 10 years old in the backyard, I put a ball on the batting tee, and then I would get ready to swing, and then I would make a swing. But not mindlessly, not practicing like for the sake of practice, but what I was doing, I was trying to mimic the perfect swing, whatever that is. And then as you get better at something like coaching or hitting a baseball or snatching a barbell, the image you have in your brain of what it is you're trying to do gets tighter and tighter and tighter, right? I think us three know as well as anyone that a beginner who goes into the gym for the first time, what they're trying to perform in a snatch is a fuzzy, general, vague expression of what a snatch is. But as you get better, you become more specific about that, and you notice more subtle things about that, right? This is the reason why an amateur could look at two swings of a baseball player back to back, and the hitter would be able to tell you all these things that went wrong. My elbow here, I got outside the baseball, all these nuanced things. The amateur would say, they look the same to me, right? Same thing. You snatching a barbell, you would feel all of these timing things, these nuanced tempo things, but the beginner would say those two lifts were the exact same in my mind. And so what we're doing is we're going on this journey of a process of just returning to that idea of perfecting the image in our mind of what it is that we're trying to do. And the process I just described is universal. It's how all things in development work. And so what we need are, to give a little bit of an actionable step here, two obvious things. One is improve your model. Okay, there are a lot of people listening to this who are attempting to be, in their mind, what a great coach would be, or what a great mother would be, or what, they're trying to be what a great loved one would be. If you had a better model of what that was, you would have a better opportunity of realizing it, right? To use the maybe negative example on coaching. A lot of coaches are mimicking what they think great coaching is, and it has a lot to do with Instagram and not a lot to do with being a great coach. Yeah. And so even if they were able to nail it and mimic what they think being a great coach is, they would be so far off of what it actually means to be a great coach or gym owner that they would be frustrated by the failure. So improve your model, right? Improve the image in your head of what it is you're trying to do. The second thing is, based on what I just described, is there's a lot of dissatisfaction in the process that I just described. because you're not hitting the mark.
Yeah.
You see the perfect snatch in your head, you try one, it feels 10 clicks off, and you're trying to improve it. And so being highly interested in that negative feedback is critical to being an expert learner, to be someone who can develop themselves, etc. And if you are only interested in the positive affirmations and the notes about what you did well, your feedback loop, your development is going to be much slower than someone who is interested in that negative feedback. So those are the two sort of actionable steps.
Love it. I like it. It's, like I say, it's a perfect analogy as well. And we talk about it again. We actually talked about it today, which I think might be an interesting point. But we always talk about how people, when they first come in the gym, like you can sort of, when you get to the point where you do not know too much, but you know a lot about something, you sort of can then start to limit your potential as well. So obviously, do you see that a lot as well in businesses or in because obviously we see it in training all the time. We see somebody go, right, okay, like I don't care, I'm going to add 20 kilograms to my front squat because why not? Do you know what I mean?
Because they've not been told that's not,
yeah.
like, they don't know.
Yeah, exactly.
And then sometimes it works
Yeah.
because they don't know what the limitations are. And the thing is with like training, it's very easy to do that because everything involves numbers, or or weight, or
And
sometimes
do you see that a lot?
Yeah, sometimes it works in the moment, but I think there are different contexts, right? Something that works now may not support another goal, which is that I think that the athlete in question is also interested in being available and able to do things in the future of a greater capacity, right? And so if that is conflicting, then it seems silly to engage in that behavior. I think just quickly on that, one of our jobs, I think, as coaches is to communicate and introduce the idea to folks that safety and performance are the same place.
Yeah.
Right. And thank God that's true, because imagine how hard our jobs would be if it really was a trade-off, meaning like you could do this well or you could do it heavy. Like then the whole time we would be talking people into doing less cool, less fun, less accomplishment filled things, right? But in reality, what we know is that they are the same place. People all the time come to me and say, hey, they're trying to like let themselves off the hook. They're like, I'm just really interested in form. That's just me. And I'm not really interested in lifting heavy weights. And I go, you're in luck, because it's actually impossible to lift heavy weights with poor form, right? And so they're the same thing. We're pulling from the same end of the rope here.
Love it. And just, do you see that a lot with business owners and leadership as well? Do you see that, like, initially you get people in and they're like, they don't know what they don't know, so they just sort of dive in head first, and then as they get to like the later stages of their education, they maybe start to limit themselves with what they know?
Yeah, I'll say this. If in gym ownership, for example, you are learning for the first time that results can be, like positive results, can be earned with poor process and fragile behaviors. If you're not learning that there is a separation between process and result, you're going to build a business that is essentially what we're seeing a lot of right now, is that people were successful on accident. And they never asked the question about how they could be better. And they used the results, meaning more members this month than I had last month, more money this month than I had last month. They're using those results to explain that they're actually good at what they're doing, which is a really scary proposition, And so hopefully people will engage at things over and over and over again in their lives, hopefully at a young age, to introduce them to this paradox of performance. I mean, for me, it was baseball. For other people, it's playing the piano or whatever the case may be. But high performers realize that you can have success and do everything wrong, and that you can also do everything right and experience failure. And the only way to reconcile that mind-numbing truth is to focus on the process, right? It's the reason why Major League Baseball players don't high five each other when they do everything wrong and accidentally get a hit, right? And when you do everything right, make great decisions, you're prepared, you're in the moment, and you hit a ball hard and a guy makes a great play and you're out, the entire organization recognizes that excellence of process. But amateurs don't do that, right? And this is an observation, I reference this often, I talk about it in the summit. You know, friends of mine who are in the CrossFit level 2 seminar staffs, specifically in Europe, because of the timing, like Europe grew slightly behind the curve of the United States, is around this time, there is this phenomenon where, you know, once you're 5 years in, you have to either renew your level 1 or go to your level 2.
Yeah.
So 5 years ago puts us where? 2015.
Yeah.
Okay. So if you opened a gym in 2015, you just got your level 1. In any major city, specifically in Europe, CrossFit was booming, right? And you had success, more success this year than you had last year, over and over and over again. And if you're a low performance individual, you would think that's because I did that. And you never ask the question about, what is this in my process that could be better? What is this in my process that would elicit better results? It's only pointing at the results and saying, I did that, right? However, you're accidentally getting hits, right? And then the level 2 happens, and anyone who's taken the level 2, it's a great course. So is the level 1. It's the first time in many of these folks' life that they receive feedback, because the difference between the level 2 and the level 1 is that you teach the level 2, and they give you feedback on your coaching. And people try to teach basic things like a PVC pipe deadlift, and they get ripped. Like, hey, you've missed this, you missed that. This was unclear. I don't understand that. Let's do it again. And their mind explodes. They're like, I'm the man. What are you talking about? Right? And this is a misunderstanding of process and results. And it's very fragile because it works. You have success right up until you don't.
Yeah.
And then you have to start over or you're dead. Right? And a lot of gyms right now are dead.
Yeah.
Agreed. Love it as well. Awesome explanation. I'm just, again, conscious of time. Just like to, I want to make sure that we ask you about your book before we go on to our fun finishing questions. And now, I've not had the chance to read the book, although I would love to after reading the blurb. But obviously, the book's called "Going Right: A Logical Justification for Pursuing Your Dreams." I like, even just the title. I'm like, okay, I'm going to read this at some point. So you've done a good job there at the very least. But obviously, just explain a little bit more about what your book's about and how it works, because I know you're big into entrepreneurship. So,
yeah, it's a decision-making book that was written because of an observation. When I got out of baseball, there was this feeling where technically I should have been the most worried, the most afraid, the most unprepared for the next thing, because I could catch and throw and hit a baseball better than anybody in my neighborhood, but literally had no other qualifications or experience other than school, right? And I'll tell you fully that right now, my job's running the gym, writing, whatever that I do, has nothing to do with hitting, throwing, and catching a baseball. Zero, right? However, there was this feeling where I couldn't unknow that I was highly prepared for whatever it is that I was going to do next, especially when starting to be aware of adults or peers around me who hadn't done anything to develop their edge of their ability. They haven't gone into this pursuit of something that would drive adaptation. And there was something there. And part of what is driving the book is this observation that so many adults, I would say most adults, are spending so much time explaining to themselves why they should not entertain their peak expression, do whatever it is, like their quote unquote dreams, right? And there's this reasoning there, right? Well, it's risky. I don't know. It's unsafe. I got bills to pay. You know, my hands are tied here, etc. And it broke my heart because I think every person who lives a life of any substantial length is asking themselves at some point, what am I doing here?
Yeah.
Right. And some people are spending more energy than others convincing themselves that they can't and they shouldn't entertain that question. And so I am of the belief that we don't need another inspirational movie or Gary Vee video yelling at you to inspire you to do those things. You've been inspired 1,000 times, but the reason why you haven't done it is because you think you're being logical. And so I wanted to write the book that ultimately left people with a bulletproof, emotionless, logical argument for the utility of following your dreams or becoming your peak self.
Yeah.
And I was able to do that. And it's very simple. I'll move through it really quickly. But there are certain attributes that people acquire this way that cannot be acquired any other way, especially in avoidance of pursuing your best self.
Yeah.
Getting the secure job, avoiding what it is that would drive your best ability, etc. And it begins with commitment. People understand commitment on a level that cannot be replicated when pursuing their dreams. I was committed to baseball in a way, and I'm committed to the gym, and I was committed to writing that book in a way that you could not do anything to me to disrupt that commitment. That's highly valuable because people that are committed at that level enroll in a large body of deep work. You work harder, better, longer, deeper than other people, period. And that results in mastery. That's uniquely valuable. Third thing is that I argue that people who have rich commitments and a large body of deep work are resilient to adversity at greater levels than other people. Every single person that's listening to this will experience adversity. I'm saying you're more fit for that adversity if you're enrolled in the right things.
Yeah.
Fourth thing, it leads to mathematically peak human experience of flow. We need a high level of preparation and a high level of challenge to make the right requirements for flow. And that is specifically only available to people that go on these pursuits. And the last amenity, if those aren't reason enough, is that these skills are highly transferable. Meaning, even if you don't make it, whatever that is, I've never made it. I've failed every goal I've ever made. You are highly fit to use these skills laterally.
Yeah.
I'm going to buy this book right now. Get me on Amazon.
So like a cool story and this happened to me recently that like might explain that and that shows how it resonates with me is I was driving to the gym recently. My daughter's 10 now, and she said to me, she was like, "What? Like obviously it's been closed for a while, so she's like, what happens if you have to close the gym?" And she went, "Do you not need like another job or something as a backup?" And I was like, she's 10, and I'm like, weird thing to think about. But I was like, no. I was like, whatever. Like, if the gym closes, whatever I've learned from running a gym for the last 4 years, I will take into whatever I do next and do it better. And she just went, "Oh, okay." And I was like, "That's okay, cool." I was like, but like again, it's just to my 10-year-old daughter who probably starts to learn from like her grandparents and a mum that like financial stability, houses, all the rest of it are really important. And having a job and a good job's really important. I was like, no, because I know I'll be okay because of the skills I've learned. And she was just, and she was like, "Oh, okay." And then that was it. She was like, "I'm happy with that answer." And I was like, "I hope you remember that." Do you know what I mean?
100%. And conversely, or we could say also ironically, there's nothing compelling about being an individual that never engages with that, right?
Yeah.
Talk about safety. How valuable is it to be a new hire or an employee who at every turn is avoiding the environments that would challenge and grow them to the highest level, right? Like, oh, I need a backup plan to hold it safe. It's like, I'm not hiring you. Who's hiring you, right? And what we're talking about is being remarkable. There's still, to this day, a monopoly on the market if you are a remarkable person. In the book, we talk about one of my friends. He's a multi-time world champion barista. That's a job that a lot of people would snuff their nose at, right? This guy is so good at making coffee, he will always have a job forever, right?
Yeah.
But if you're a barista because it's a backup plan to your other, you want to be an actor and all that stuff, you know how many baristas like that you can find? Millions. I'm uninterested in that, right? And so this is the utility piece that we're talking about.
Yeah, I love it. Awesome. So Logan, I've got a couple more quick fire questions for you before we wrap it up. And the first one is always, have you got a book recommendation? So you can give me two.
No, I won't even recommend my book. There's one book that is mandatory reading for folks that enroll in Coaches Prep, which is basically how we hire coaches in the Juice organization. And that's Carol Dweck's Mindset. It's a mandatory read, and because we can't do the kind of work that we need to do and create the teams that we need to create if folks don't have a great relationship with negative feedback. And so I would just say that that's mandatory reading for anyone, especially people who are teaching other people or have kids. It's really unbelievable.
Yeah, great book. Agreed. So another question, fun one, would be, if you could try any sport other than baseball, because I know you've mentioned that a few times, what would it be?
I've actually, I mean, this might be a cop-out answer because I'm trying it, but jiu-jitsu. I think jiu-jitsu is one of those sports that checks a lot of boxes for me, which is that it includes a long road to mastery that never ends. The utility is real, right? It's not like Kung Fu where this is sort of pretend. There is best practices associated with it. And I plan on doing jiu-jitsu for the rest of my life.
Amazing. I love it. And if you could pick one person to play you in a film about your life, who would it be?
Oh man.
Always like a fun one.
I thought you were going for a different one then.
No, it would be nice.
Shoot, man. I don't know. And I'm also bad with famous folks. It would probably be a comedian. I really appreciate the brilliance of stand-up comedians. So, shoot, I don't know who would fit the bill for the look, but yeah, let's just give a general answer of like a stand-up comedian. I really appreciate that.
I like it. Cool. And last one is, what's your pet hate for dick gym moves, as we call them? So what's the one thing that you see somebody doing in the gym and you're like, oh, he's gonna kill you?
Be honest.
Yeah.
Don't hold anything back.
All your members are sat there going, hey.
There's really so many. I don't know. I think I don't want to give a cop-out answer, but I think it's a general thing, which is that, you know, one of the things that we try to do at the gym is create this context that, like, we're going to do the training, but the feeling is that you're coming here to learn. And so if people are like aloof to that and they're not there to listen, I don't know. I have a thing like with respect in that way, which is like, hey, we're here for this message. Dive in and be curious about that thing. So I think it's like any behavior that looks like a lack of buy-in or interest to the fact that like you're here to learn is maybe the most annoying to me.
A little bit. Yeah, excellent. So obviously, Logan, thank you very much for joining us. Thoroughly enjoyed it. I do want to ask before we let you go as well, though, where can people find you? So if there's people don't follow you already, where's the best places to see what you get up to?
Yeah, I'm on social media at Functional Coach.
Yeah.
And
did well to get that handle, by the way.
Funny thing about the handle is like it's less. I like to do things with upside, you know, meaning that they have like the potential for growth. But I really got it because the gym started in the park and with a horrible name called Functional Fitness on the Bluffs, and so it was really an homage to that, but had the transcendence ability that it does. But yeah, it's there. And the deucegym.com website is a great place to find all the online education. There's a daily blog. There's almost 2,500 of them that I think is a short, impactful read. That's DEUCEgym.com. And yeah, you can check out our Coaches Prep online. It's a course for coaches development. We also help gyms facilitate their own team development. And I have a course called Business Prep 101 that really teaches the sort of fundamentals of how to be a badass in business. And then the Hold the Standard Summit. As soon as we can get on airplanes again, I'll be back out to Barcelona and then obviously Los Angeles for the summit.
Amazing.
Love it. Awesome. We will do our best to link as much of that up as possible in the show notes. And again, before we go, guys, again, thank you very much for joining us, Logan. We do need to thank our sponsor. Sponsor for today is X Endurance, xendurance.eu, to use the code AgogeTV20 for 20% off anything in your basket. So check them out, guys. I think that's Fuel 5 that Josh is drinking there because he's done about 4 hours of weightlifting today. So check it out and enjoy. Again, thank you everyone for joining us. Hope you enjoyed it, guys. Peace.